One morning, a single headline snapped the world of a well-known ministry into sharp focus. If you want the full, clear story, the why, the who, and what might come next, stick with me. And before I go on, if you value honest, careful coverage, please like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe so you don't miss follow-ups. Your support helps us keep digging into important stories. Now let's get into it. Kenneth Copeland was a name many people trusted. For decades he preached to millions, built a vast ministry, and became one of the most visible faces of the prosperity gospel. To his followers, his life seemed like proof of the message he preached. Faith, followed by blessing. He flew on private jets, owned large homes, and lived a life many admired. But over time, quiet questions began to surface. Former staff members whispered about odd financial practices. A few ex-employees talked privately about records that didn't seem right. At first, it sounded like the kind of office gossip that follows any large organization. Then the whispers grew louder. Then the questions became formal complaints. And finally, the story exploded into a major scandal. What started as a handful of concerns turned into allegations of misuse of ministry funds, financial fraud, and tax problems. People who had worked closely with the ministry began to come forward with claims of money being moved in strange ways. They said donors' gifts, money given for ministry work, were sometimes used for private expenses. They mentioned luxury cars, expensive homes, and flights that did not look like ministry expenses. Those who raised concerns described pressure to stay quiet, or instructions to not dig too deeply into certain accounts. That kind of culture, if true, can hide problems for years. The turning point came when federal investigators reportedly stepped in. News that authorities had arrived with search warrants and then an arrest warrant shifted the story from rumor to legal crisis. Seeing a familiar televangelist led away in handcuffs shocked many people. For some it was validation of long-held suspicions. For others it was heartbreaking. A leader they trusted suddenly under arrest. The visual of a public figure escorted by officers is powerful. It collapses the distance between private allegations and public accountability. It's important to say something right away. What we're talking about are allegations and charges that were reported. Allegations are not the same as convictions. In a fair system, the accused has the right to defend themselves, and we should let the legal process take its course. Still, when accusations involve donor money and charitable work, the public has a strong interest in clear answers. People give to ministries expecting their gifts to help other people, not fund lavish lifestyles. So when those expectations are broken, emotions run high. The initial reports alleged a range of financial misconduct. Moving funds between accounts without clear explanations, paying for personal items out of ministry money, and possibly hiding some income from tax authorities. Former employees described times when they found accounts that did not balance or expenses that lacked proper documentation. Some said they were warned not to talk about certain transactions. Others said they were pressured to approve things that made them uncomfortable. Whistleblowers, people willing to tell the story publicly, played a big role in bringing the case to light. Once the media got hold of the story, it spread fast. Headlines across the country broadcast the arrest, the charges, and reactions from shocked followers. Cable news anchors replayed footage of law enforcement at the ministry office. Reporters dug through public records, tracing property purchases, corporate filings, and tax documents. Every detail, from jet ownership to the titles on property deeds, was examined. The ministry's decades of public life suddenly faced intense scrutiny. The reaction among Copeland's supporters was split. A large portion of his base remained loyal. For them, Kenneth Copeland had preached a message that changed lives. They remembered the meals he helped provide, the prayers he led, and the moments of spiritual encouragement they had received. Some supporters said the charges were politically motivated or an attempt to discredit a religious leader. They called for prayer and patience, saying the truth would come out and he would be cleared. At the same time, other followers felt betrayed and hurt. People who had been donating for years began asking hard questions. Some asked for refunds. Smaller donors, who had given sacrificially, said they felt used. They had trusted that their contributions would help people in need, not fund private luxuries. For those donors, the scandal was deeply personal. Donations are often tied to faith and hope. When those ties are broken, the sense of betrayal cuts deep. Inside the ministry, the fallout was immediate. Staff who stayed worried about their jobs and the organization's future. Some staffers who had raised concerns earlier felt vindicated. Others feared being caught in the crossfire. When a public institution like a ministry is in trouble, daily operations, programs, broadcasts, aid projects, can suffer. Partners, churches, and other ministries that had worked closely with the organization started to distance themselves, at least publicly, until there was more clarity. Family reactions were also complicated. The headlines are painful for anyone whose life has been public for decades. For family members, every rumor becomes a bruise. Some family members stood by him, expressing shock and insisting on their belief in his character. Others were said to be struggling privately, trying to reconcile the man they knew with the allegations reported in the press. Family loyalty can be powerful, but public leaders are also accountable in public ways, and that tension plays out painfully in families when scandal hits. From a legal perspective, the stakes were high. The reported charges, conspiracy to commit fraud, tax evasion, misuse of charitable funds, carry serious penalties if proven. Prosecutors must show deliberate intent to misuse funds and to hide that misuse from donors and tax authorities. That requires paper trails, bank records, invoices, contracts, emails, and witness testimony. Defense teams often respond by pointing to accounting errors, differences of interpretation, or the complexity of nonprofit finances. They argue the organization's decisions were lawful and ordinary for a growing ministry with many moving parts. Courts then decide, based on standards of evidence, what actually happened. This kind of case also raises broader questions about the sector as a whole. Christian ministries, like other nonprofits, rely on public trust. That trust is built slowly and can be destroyed quickly. When major scandals emerge, they don't just hurt one organization. They erode confidence in other groups doing honest work. Donors become more cautious. People who might have given to a food bank or a disaster relief fund might pause and ask for more transparency. That's why many leaders in the nonprofit world emphasize strong governance. Independent boards, external audits, clear financial policies, and transparent reporting. One of the hardest parts of these stories is sorting emotion from fact. Faith communities feel pain because religion is personal. For many, a leader's failure feels like a spiritual wound. And yet we must also be careful. Rushing to judgment before the facts are in can be unfair. It helps to ask clear questions. What do the records show? Did donors know how their money was used? Were there controls in place? Were concerns raised internally and ignored? Answers to those questions will matter both legally and morally. Whistleblowers deserve special attention in these moments. People who come forward risk careers and relationships. They are often driven by conscience, not by money. When an organization has irregular practices, insiders see patterns others do not. Their testimony can be the spark that leads to investigation. But we should also treat any whistleblower claims carefully, verifying documents, seeking corroboration, and letting due process play out. Still, their courage to step forward is often how hidden problems come to light. The media's role is double-edged. Journalists investigated the records and brought facts to the public, which is crucial in a democracy. But media cycles can also amplify rumor and speculation. Overnight, social feeds and comment sections brimmed with hot takes. Some commentators suggested this was the end of the prosperity gospel, while others cautioned against sweeping conclusions. Responsible reporting distinguishes between allegations, evidence, and verdicts. For viewers, that means looking for reporting that cites documents, named witnesses, and verifiable sources rather than anonymous claims or viral posts. Beyond legal and media concerns, there's a wider spiritual and moral conversation. If donations were misused, who gets made whole? Restitution matters. An honest ministry has to consider returning misdirected funds, apologizing to donors, and rebuilding programs with transparent oversight. Restoration can also be spiritual. Pastoral apologies, repentance, and clear steps to demonstrate change. For many in faith communities, restoration isn't merely legal. It is moral and relational. Another consequence is the ripple effect on staff and partners. People who worked for the ministry often did so out of passion for the mission. Losing public trust can lead to layoffs, canceled programs, and harm to those the ministry served. That makes quick, transparent action essential if the goal is to preserve good work and protect vulnerable people who rely on ministries for help. So what would responsible fixes look like? First, full financial transparency where possible. That means independent audits, clear public accounting, and a willingness to disclose how funds were used. Second, governance reform. Independent board members, conflict of interest policies, and stronger internal controls. Third, public communication that is honest and consistent, admitting mistakes where they occurred and explaining steps to correct them. Fourth, support for those harmed, addressing donor losses and protecting program recipients. Finally, spiritual leadership that models humility and care, not defensiveness. There is another human layer to all this: the personal struggle of the accused. If the allegations are true, accountability is deserved. If they are false, the damage to reputation and life is also severe. Either way, families are affected, staff are shaken, and communities are left needing answers. That human cost means we must approach the story with seriousness but also with compassion for all impacted. Let's also consider the broader cultural moment. For years, conversations about religious leadership and accountability have been rising. Scandals around abuse, financial misconduct, and misuse of authority have led many congregations to demand better oversight. People increasingly expect non-profit organizations to meet corporate standards of transparency. That change is healthy. Ministries that adapt will survive and serve. Those that ignore these lessons risk decline. For viewers and donors wondering what to do next, here are practical steps. First, ask for clarity. If you give to a ministry, ask for audited financials and a clear breakdown of program spending. Second, support organizations with transparent governance. Third, back whistleblowers who bring evidence to light. They help protect the public interest. Fourth, don't let sensational headlines be your only source. Read verified reports and official documents when possible. Finally, practice humility. Strong people admit when problems exist and work to fix them. This story will not end quickly. Legal proceedings take time. Investigations may uncover more facts. Audits may reveal mistakes or confirm misdeeds. The public will watch finances, statements, and court filings closely. At the same time, there is the long work of healing, for donors, for staff, and for the faithful who feel betrayed. Healing requires truth and action. I want to be clear about one thing before we close. Accountability is not the same as punishment for its own sake. Accountability means ensuring that promises are kept, that gifts are used properly, and that leaders are answerable to those they serve. It is a healthy part of any organization. Holding people accountable should come with a clear plan for restitution and restoration when appropriate. Where does that leave Kenneth Copeland's legacy? That depends on what the investigations show and how the ministry responds. If wrongdoing is proven, history will remember both the good that was done and the harm inflicted. If the allegations are disproven, the reputational damage may remain but could be slowly repaired with transparency and time. What is almost certain is that this event will shape conversations about ministry leadership for years. Donors will demand better. Boards will tighten controls. Leaders will learn that public trust is fragile and must be guarded. To the people who are hurt because they gave faithfully, your anger and sadness are valid. To the people who stand in support and pray for justice and truth, your desire for clarity is important. To the family and staff caught up in this storm, you deserve compassion even as the facts come to light. And to anyone running a ministry, take this moment as a call to strengthen governance, practice radical transparency, and protect those who depend on you. This is a story about power, trust, and responsibility. It is about how institutions that start with good intentions can drift into dangerous territory when oversight is weak and secrecy grows. It is also a story about the law and the need for evidence, and it is about ordinary people who gave believing in a higher purpose. As the legal and financial processes move forward, keep asking for facts. Insist on clear answers. Support structures that protect donors and beneficiaries. And remember, institutions can be reformed when those who lead are willing to change. If you want us to follow this case closely, we will. We'll watch court filings, audits and statements, and we'll report updates as facts emerge. We'll interview experts on nonprofit governance and accounting, and we'll look for credible, documented information before making claims. If you care about this topic, tell us in the comments what questions you want answered. Specific financial records, details about governance, or interviews with insiders. We'll use your suggestions to guide our follow-up. Before we wrap up, one more ask. If this investigation mattered to you, please like the video, leave a thoughtful comment below, and subscribe to the channel for updates. Your engagement helps the story get seen by people who need the information. Thank you for spending this time. Keep asking questions, keep giving wisely, and keep holding institutions to the standards they promise to meet. And finally, like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you with more updates as this story continues to unfold.